everyone. Happy Wednesday. I know it's not a Friday, but we have something coming up this week. So Chris was so generous enough to reschedule his time and do it in the middle of the week instead of the end of the week. So Chris, thank you so much for being flexible with me and adaptable. I really appreciate it. And I'm really excited that you're here because, first, before we get into that, can you provide who you are and what you do and what company you work for?
Yeah, for sure. Chris Granger. I'm the engineering services manager at an electrical equipment company. Most people may know it as EECO. And also at EECO, I host a podcast called EECO Ask Why. And that's where we met and had you
Yeah.
on as one of a wonderful hero episode we had. So get to do that. It's a lot of fun. Talk to a lot of wonderful people in the industry. Actually, we were doing the counting. I've interviewed 24 amazing women through the podcast and got some really great stories.
It was a lot of fun too. You had a speed round for the podcast,
Yeah.
and you asked some really personal questions that I thought was interesting, and I
Yep.
had a lot of fun partaking. But normally, I don't interview men on Mavens of Manufacturing because I really try to highlight the women in engineering and manufacturing,
Mm-hmm.
so that other women can get inspired to maybe think about joining the sector and pursuing career pathways. But what's interesting about you is you are a girl dad. You have
Yes.
3 daughters, you have no sons. And I just wanted to really have a conversation with you to see what sort of things you are doing as a girl dad to get them excited about engineering and manufacturing. So can you start off with maybe how long you yourself have been in manufacturing and what got you involved, and then maybe provide some things that you do or share with their daughters to get them really interested in STEM opportunities?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been in the industry for around 20 years. So, I mean, I straight out of college, went to work for an electrical equipment company, been to all sorts of manufacturers across the Southeast. So it's been a pretty cool, like I tell people, if you work for a distributor, you kind of have the opportunity to live the how it's made world, for those that like that show, because you can bounce from one manufacturer to the next and just really get in. So it's been pretty cool. It's been an amazing journey. My oldest daughter is 11. My youngest is 8 weeks. So I do have a 9-year-old in there too. So, pretty good spread there. And, when I was thinking about Megan coming on and talking to you today, 2 words just kept coming to the forefront of my mind so far as what I try to do with my girls. And that's intentional and present. Okay. So, I mean, and what I mean by that is, to be a girl dad and to be just a dad in general, you have to be to really be intentional about where you spend your time with your kids. And
Mm-hmm.
ultimately you have to be present with them. If you look at what's important to people, I always say you can look in 2 places. You can look in a checkbook and you look at a calendar and you can find out what's important to people, right? So if you're not being intentional about spending that time with your girls and really taking the time with them, uh, then you'll miss that opportunity. And I find so many times with my girls, they just want me to be there, just to be with them, just to hang out, right? And so those 2 words I really want to hang on today and share with you, and we can definitely go through some more examples as we go.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had quite a few conversations with, the challenges that manufacturers are facing as a whole, one being the skills gap.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always the debate of when should we start, exposing the next generation to manufacturing and engineering career opportunities. And some say, we got to get them before high school. We really need to start talking to them. But then there's this whole concept of like exposure, not really
Mm-hmm.
necessarily saying, hey, here are the careers that are in engineering and manufacturing. Where do you think you fit in? But more like exposing them to like basic general information on certain manufacturing processes or theories or ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is a non-for-profit organization that I talk to, and one of the things that they do for kids that are younger than 8, 9 years old is they have an activity book, and the activity book shows different careers, but then ties like a certain activity within that career, which
Right.
I thought was interesting. So, as a dad of 3 girls, what are some of the things that you do with your children to kind of introduce the engineering and the manufacturing within
Yeah.
either their playtime or their school time, or just, maybe extracurricular activities that they're doing?
Now, first of all, you keep it simple. Okay. And you don't put too much pressure on yourself as a parent. So that's my rule. Like I try to keep it real simple and try to find ways to make those connections. I mean, I think about just this past weekend, I took my oldest to camping and they found an old fishing rod next to the pier. And most parents would be like, put that down. It's probably got like poison on it or something, right? But I was just like, cool, grab it. Let's take it. So we took it home. And I was like, my oldest was like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, let's see how the reel is put together. We have nothing to lose here. It's not like it's ours, that we didn't buy this, but let's take it and tear it apart. So that turned into a 30-minute project on how do you actually get it apart. And then you looked at all the parts inside, and we were pulling off the gears and the little shafts and all that, and seeing how this fishing rod came together. So it was just that was for me, real recent example of just finding things in everyday life, right? Just to make those connections around engineering and science, and it could just be as simple as just driving down the road and talking. I know one thing that's been coming up lately that I've been trying to make the ties around STEM with them is just around sports. They're big into
Interesting.
basketball and volleyball and softball and all that stuff. So all sports have like, velocity and angles and, different types of speed. And so, okay, just talking with them about that. And volleyball has been the most recent one. Okay. When a ball is coming at you and you're trying to calm the ball and you're trying to direct it to a new area, like just having those conversations with them and being intentional about that. And when we do a post-game review of, okay, what could we have done different? A lot of times those types of topics come up. So I think you just got to find opportunities in just everyday life. It'd be great to take them to a cool manufacturing plant and show them that, but sometimes not everybody can do that. But we all have things going on every day that ties into STEM, and it depends on what they're interested in. I know for my oldest, she's big into cooking, so that's a ton of math and opportunities to talk about different mathematical concepts inside from a cooking standpoint, and just bring it out in the open. Okay, you need 3/4 of a cup. Well, all we have is a quarter cup. So, basic stuff like that, right? Just to get the conversation going.
Hmm. It's interesting that you tied sports with, the science and the math part of it, because
Mm-hmm.
I played sports my entire life and I never really thought about any of those things when I played sports. So that's really cool that you tie that in there. And with math, especially, like I
Mm-hmm.
hate math. I'm sorry if I offend anybody that loves math, to all the engineers and manufacturers, but it doesn't click in my head. Hence why I became a writer and went into marketing, because just numbers confuse me. I still use
Mm-hmm.
my fingers. I've mentioned that before. So my question is not everybody is lucky enough to grow up in a family who might have an engineer or manufacturer in the household.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I mean, my dad was involved in manufacturing my entire life, but we really didn't make that connection until maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when he um, started listening in on my conversations of what I was doing on the marketing side. And then when I started Mavens, he's like, wait a minute, what is this? And then he started opening more up about like things that he did in manufacturing. So what sort of ideas or tips can you give to families who might not have that background in engineering and manufacturing to really get their kids excited about opportunities? Because one of the challenges too in recruiting the next generation is educating not just the students, but the parents as well, and
Yeah.
letting them know that manufacturing and engineering is a great sector to start a career pathway. So, what would you say to those families?
Yeah. For those families, one question comes to mind. And I think the journey to discovering it is the fun part you could do together. And that question is, how do you think that works? Right? Just ask your kids. It could be anything. When you cut the oven on in your kitchen to cook dinner that night, when you hit 350 enter and it's heating up, How do you know it's going to get to 350 degrees? And as a parent, you may not have a clue, but guess what? It's called G to G. Go to Google, and you can do that with your kids, right? You can go, okay, let's figure this out together. Well, how does this work? And then start just that question. How do you think that works over and over? Just challenge yourself. Maybe you want to have that conversation around a convection oven. Let's just stick with that one. Well, maybe just do a quick Google, YouTube, get some of the basics down. You don't have to be a thermal engineer to do that. You could just be stay-at-home mom with the HR background. I'm speaking to my wife right here. And, she could do that and then have that conversation, right? I mean, so don't feel like you have to be the expert. I feel like, for one, parents just put too much pressure on themselves to feel like they have to have all the answers. As an engineer, when I came out of college, I was actually petrified to go out to call on customers. And my boss at the time, he had to shock me of like, all right, you're not going to have all the answers, but that's okay. Just accept that, be humble, and then go out there and be curious, because that's what we're trying to do with these kids, right? And especially the girls out there, we want to just encourage that curiosity and get them to asking the questions and let them know it's okay if they don't know, but help them guide them to the answer. I think that's, for a parent that doesn't have an engineer in the house, just be curious together. That would be my advice.
I think that's great advice because kids are so curious at a young age, and it seems like we try to mellow that out or calm it down as they get older because we want them to be contributing civilians to society as they get older. So we kind of try to set up boundaries so they don't get hurt or they don't get safe,
Right.
or they don't get hurt or they don't get in trouble. I mean, and I feel like sometimes we take that curiosity away from them by setting up those boundaries. I do like that you said, be curious with them together. And I think there is a difference that parents don't intentionally do it, but there is a difference on how you incorporate play with girls versus boys. So, what are some of the things that we can do differently when it comes to playtime, specifically with girls? So, like, when I was growing up, I typically played with dolls or Barbies or, tea sets, I guess you could say. And my brothers, they had a whole different sense of play. They had the erector set, they had Legos. I wanted that stuff,
Right.
but my mom just went and did the typical shopping for, oh, she's a girl, so I'm gonna get her dolls and stuff. What sort of things can we change about that so that we're incorporating some of these STEM opportunities with how girls play?
Well, I mean, there's all sorts of ways. I mean, you got to try to find toys and things that they're interested in, first of all. And I mean, when I think through some of the things that we've done, here at the house, it could be one of the coolest things they got is this little, it's a pink, it's like a register, like for running a store. So, what little girl out there doesn't like playing store and things like that, and as a dad, get down there and give them some, mix in some complexities. Now you have to meet them where they're at. You can't go super complex if they're like 4 years old, right? But, as they get older, 6, 7, 8, 9, you can start throwing in some things like that and make that playtime fun. Throwing in some math concepts, maybe throwing some science. I know one thing from my girls that they've loved is just making slime. Here's a little note: do it outside, right? You don't do it in the house, but just find, because then you can make slime. One of the coolest ones we ever did was like slime with like this glitter in it, and I still shudder and start, like, it gives me highs to think about that project because I had, like, there was glitter everywhere for like 2 months. So we don't do the glitter projects. We make sure we do those outside for sure from now on, but just stuff like that. And, when you do a science project like that, okay, the chemistry behind it. And I'm not a chemist, but, go online and check it out and walk them through it. And I think we just got to find those projects and those opportunities to work with our girls. Again, just encouraging that curiosity, because that's what we need to get them to just keep asking them, how do you think that's made? Right.
I think we definitely need to focus too on the encouragement part of things too when it comes to girls, because I think girls are more reserved when trying to pursue something. And with that extra encouragement and those affirmations on a regular basis, I think that would give them the courage to try something out, even if they don't see someone that looks like them, right?
Right.
The whole slime conversation got me thinking about my niece, Macy. Well, a couple of my nieces, they actually started a business at 8 and 9 years old, making slime, like different colors of slime with glitter and all that other stuff, and selling it to their friends at school for like 50 cents to $1. It was
Isn't that
hilarious to me.
awesome? That is
I
so
thought it was
awesome.
great. And my sister personally loved it because it involved math. So she's the math genius in our
Right.
family, and she teaches 7th grade math. So she was all for it. She's like, "Oh yeah, we'll show you how to add and subtract and how to,
That's
what
right.
profit margins are." Like it was great to see them do that. I just want to shout out to Gail Robertson and Ashley Walters too. They've been commenting during our conversation.
Oh yeah.
Gail, my son had $5 and he wanted to go to a dollar store. Things were still $1 each. I told him he could pick out 4 items as there was tax. That lesson stuck with him, and that is also math in real life.
There you
LOL.
go.
That's a really good point. And then she also said, be curious. Yes, Chris Granger, we need to support curiosity in all areas of life. So my next
sure.
question is a personal question for you.
Okay.
Why is it so important for you to be an advocate for women in engineering and manufacturing? Why is that something? Because initially before, when you asked, because we were talking about, okay, how can we angle this to have you on Mavens of Manufacturing? Because I only had one other guy so far, Andrew Crow, and he was with one of his students that he was teaching CNC
Right.
machining for. And I was like, well, you're a girl dad, you have no boys. So
Yep.
I really want to hear your side of things and how to get girls really excited about engineering and manufacturing. So why is that important for you to be an advocate, not just for your girls, but for other women?
Well, I mean, when I think about manufacturing in general and just this industry, let's just boil it down to just the industrial sector, right? It's heavily male dominated, and that's facts. Now, I've interviewed people. I interviewed a lady last week actually, and she was just telling me she's been to some trade shows before in the past where literally she was one of like 3 women there. So I just think as a 3-time, well, it's a 4-time girl dad, by the way. One of them's not here anymore, but I'll meet her again one day soon. But as a 3-time girl dad here on earth, I want my 3 daughters, just to know that, hey, they can do this. And there is an opportunity awaiting for you. And if they choose to go down the STEM path and end up in manufacturing, I want them to have people like me who are there opening the doors and making the connections for them. Right. I do that a lot with people through the podcast, just to my personal, the way I try to serve others is just making those connections. And I think we need to have more men in particular, being intentional about trying to help that next generation, particularly the young ladies out there that are trying to break through and to stand out. And I can tell you one thing, from the 24 guests that I've been just humbled to interview so far, the female guests, their stories, no offense to all the other EECO Ask Why guests, they're amazing. It's just, and my oldest daughter came up, she was like, did you know this lady did this and did this and did this? I'm like, well, I was interviewing her, so yeah, I knew that's right. But it's just to see them light up, and I think you got to have guys stand up and support and be there to be that voice and to be that advocate. So that's what's so passionate about it for me.
I love that she's paying attention to who your guests are and asking questions. I think that's amazing. So,
Oh,
is
yeah.
there any area in particular that your daughters are favoring over other areas within manufacturing and engineering? Like, what are some of their favorite things that they've either learned about from your show or researched with you? Like, what are they interested in when it comes to STEM stuff?
Science and math right now. That's been the big ones that jump out. I mean, they listen. One of their favorite guests are Mary Bruce Clemens, and she works at TW Controls. Tim Wilbur in that group just does phenomenal stuff. And but just I think anything math related, they really get a kick out of. And I noticed my oldest daughter, we were doing homework last night. She really likes when the math problems are actually problems, real life problems, right? Not just solve for X and here's why, and do the algebra. But like when they tie it together, because that's what I told her. I say, well, that's good, because that's what you're going to be facing in real life. You're not going to be given just a formula to solve this. You're going to be trying to take that math and apply it to solve a real world problem. So that's what they've been gravitating to the most here lately. And but my Ava, my middle 9-year-old, she's like in science and all the things that's going in there. Now they're working through electric circuits, and they want to bring in a flashlight next week, and they're going to talk about conductors and resistors and how loads work. And I'll say, all right, girl, pay attention. I'm going to quiz you when you get home on that. Right. So it's just knowing that their dad knows what's going on, and that I'm actually interested. And I think that's what we as parents, no matter, girl dad, boy dad, or mom or dad, you got to take that interest. You got to show that curiosity yourself, because think about that. When do you do your best on explaining something? It's usually like if you had to teach it. I know when I've had to teach stuff in the past, if you have to teach it and tell somebody else, you take a new level, of interest in it. And that's what applies to your kids telling you about their day in math class too. So just being, again, going back to that word intentional.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ashley just made another comment. Advocates making connections and providing opportunities are important parts of your personal and professional growth. I couldn't
Amen.
agree anymore.
Amen.
So you're really playing a part of a mentor to your children. And I think that's another thing that's important as well too with parents, like just continuing to be encouraging, because kids at a young age, from a very young age, are always trying to find ways to, get the approval of their parents. It's just a natural thing. They want to be accepted. They want to know that they're doing the right thing. And I think it's important too that he's that famous astrologer, Degrassi. What's his first name? I can never remember his first name. But he was doing a lecture, and he was talking about how kids will jump in puddles and stuff. And to us, it might look like they're just causing a mess or creating a mess, or, just jumping in a puddle, when you're not thinking about it on a deeper level. But to them, they're actually discovering, and they're exploring, and they're learning how things, work and make. And I had my daughter at a pretty young age, and I think I was a little naive back then, because I really didn't understand like what she was trying to do as she was getting older. Right. And now with my 2 boys, I think I'm a little bit more relaxed on messes and stuff. Like I don't get so tensed up when they're making messes. My son dumped a whole glass of milk down the stairs one day, and my husband was just like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "He's just learning how it falls. It's fine. Like, we'll clean it up later." So I think kind of encouraging that too is a good way to like get kids interested in having fun. But I really like your point where be curious with them, and don't have so much pressure on yourselves to not know the right answer, because we're not going to know all of the answers.
We're not. And I tell you, I do have a quick story that may help some of the listeners out there, how to just take a real life example we had here, and not so much STEM, but just life in general, tie it all together. If you want me to share that, I'll be glad to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is an example of how you can just take anything at home and turn it into an opportunity to learn. Because even if you're in STEM, you're going to probably end up in a business situation one day, and you're going to have to, write a contract. You'll be in those business conversations. You need to be able to handle yourself. So the story is, my daughters, they were living in separate. We have 2 rooms upstairs, and they had separate rooms. They wanted to come together in one room. I knew it was a bad idea. So I just like, this is not going to work. But instead of saying no, I said, I'll tell you what, do a presentation to me and my wife, and I want you guys to give me, I laid out like 5 value points. Like, why this is a good idea. What's the benefit going to be? What's the payoff? How much time are you going to need from me to move the rooms, the stuff around? Because here's my hourly rate. I want you to, tie together how you're going to pay me back, because you're not going to pay money. You're going to have to work that off and earn a commission. And so they did a presentation. They actually made slides just on paper. Okay. The first presentation was terrible, and I gave them feedback. I was like, look, you did not answer the questions. So here's where you need to think about it and do better. They went back, and the second one, they knocked it out the park. I mean, it was killer. So we let them move. And then we wrote everything down in a contract. I mean, I wrote this thing like a contract you get from a lawyer, right? And we had a contract reading, and then we signed it and had it notarized because my wife works with a notary. So she was just laughing the whole way, right? But then they wanted to change back because 6 months into it, they realized this is not working. We need our own space back. So they had to do another presentation. And then we did the whole process again, had it notarized. But it was one of those things where I just didn't say no. They've learned something about contracts now. They had to do some math. They actually had to do some engineering design now that I think about it, because they had to lay out, they had to actually take measurements of the bed and do a CAD drawing, kind of like a CAD drawing on paper of, here's the layout, and we know it's going to work because these are dimensions and we've already measured it. So finding little ways like that to that was just for me a cool story that maybe could resonate with someone that's out there watching, to take a real life opportunity and turn that into a chance to learn.
I really like too that they had to use their critical thinking skills too to come up with a presentation and solutions. We got quite a few comments coming in through your storytelling stuff. Matthew Rawl said, new to a 4-month-old daughter. I'd love to be able to help in any way I can to build a bridge for women within manufacturing so that in the future she has the same opportunities I have growing up. I love it. Grace mentioned Neil, and then Will Healy, who's an awesome guy as well in manufacturing. He mentioned Tim Wilborn's YouTube channel. They do have an amazing YouTube channel, so I suggest you guys go check that link out, because he is always on there posting every single day, just different things that he's working with and doing different demos and, really teaching how electronics works. It's great. Grace also said, I highly recommend the YouTube channel Smarter Every Day. I would have loved it as a child, but still get great enjoyment out of it. The show explores how different things work in great detail. I'm going to have to check that one out. I haven't even heard of that one.
Cool.
Oh, and then Will shared another one. Neil deGrassi, thank you, Will. I forgot his first name. I said Anthony.
And one channel that's really cool too for this topic is Jay Flores. He's got the whole, it's not magic, it's science. And my girls, we anytime Jay puts out a new video, he kind of gives you the how to do it. Then he breaks down the why behind it, why it works the way it works. And they're all geared towards kids. So I know Jay he's been on our show a couple times and doing great stuff out there to advocate for STEMs. I'd also recommend to check him out.
That's fantastic. One of the things that I'd recommend too, if no one else has heard about it, but it's so popular, I'd be surprised if they haven't, is EECO. They are a subscription box delivery service, and they deliver STEM type activities to your doorstep. It's fantastic. I get it more. I get it more for myself than my kids, though. That's a little secret, but
That's it.
Well, Chris, it's been such a joy to talk to you, and I really have enjoyed our time. And one of my final questions before I ask for any final advice that you might have is, why is it important as a whole for us to invite more women into the sector? Like, what would be missing if women decided to pursue other career pathways outside of manufacturing and engineering? What would be missing from the sector?
A lot. I mean, just think about the way that we're all created, and the differences in the men and women. There are differences for a reason, and I just think there's so much, that two is better than one, and just think about from a standpoint of a marriage, for particularly my marriage, she's my partner, she's the one I go to, and I help her in certain areas, she helps me in a lot more areas than I help her probably. But I mean, there's so much that's missed when we don't get that female perspective, and because I mean, guys, a lot of times we're too narrow-minded, and I'm the guilty party, first and foremost. So it always helps, and it's so critical to get that perspective.
So do you have any final piece of advice for anyone that's listening and
Yep.
After that, if people want to get in touch with you and learn more about your story, can you provide us information on how to get in touch with you?
For sure. My final advice maybe is going to be speak to the girl dads, and for the moms that may be watching this, share this. And what I want to tell you dads is more is caught than taught. Your kids are going to pay more attention to what you're saying, what you're actually doing than what you're saying. So it's cool to, lower your octave and be the big dad and, go to la, la, la. But I tell you what, it's going to make a bigger impact, particularly on your daughters, is how they see you treat your wife, how you treat them, how you treat other women, just in period, in general, how you live your life. So that's the big thing. And the last point is you only have 18 summers with your kids. And I got turned on to a podcast and a book, and it's around 18 summers. And when you put it in that perspective, it goes by really freaking quick. Right.
Yeah.
And so when you got 18 summers, you want to make sure that you take each one of them, each opportunity, be intentional with your time, be present, be in their lives, spend one-on-one time with them. If you have multiple kids like me, we were real intentional each month. They get one-on-one time because they're each individuals. I have a very athletic, I have an introvert, my 8-week-old, we'll see what she's going to be, but she's going to be her own person too. So, the 18 summers, make them count, and then more is caught than taught. That would be my last point of advice for the dads out there.
So many good points. I don't like the whole 18 summers because my daughter's turning 18 this December. So that just kind of made me a little sad, almost shed a tear there. Like, I don't like thinking about that. But again, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. And to all that chimed in on today's episode, I want to thank you as well, too. This week, Friday, make sure you tune in because we are going live at Beloit Memorial High School. We're going to have some great presenters. We're going to try to recruit younger students to join the manufacturing and engineering sector and get them really excited about what's going on and all the trends that are happening. And tune in next week because we'll have another great guest for Mavens of Manufacturing. Have a great Wednesday, everyone. Thank you, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
All right.
This episode of Mavens has been sponsored by Fresh Horizons Group. Fresh Horizons Group is a family-run company that was founded on the premise of helping organizations and businesses better tell their story through high-quality branded apparel and promotional items. Freshen up your brand by contacting Fresh Horizons today at freshhorizonsgroup.com.